Agencies are going to start posting and spending like crazy because the end of the government's fiscal year is the end of September. And this is where my rule of 10, the rule of 10 comes into play. The rule of 10 is as follows. When you bid on opportunities, you want to ensure that there are 10 days in between when an opportunity has been released and when that opportunity is due. If there are fewer than 10 days, chances are it's rigged for somebody else. When it comes to the 10 days, yeah, it can include weekends and holidays, of course, but you want a minimum of 10 days because if not, what'll happen is you'll spend all this time and all this energy and you won't win. And we don't want that here. So just be aware, you're going to see an uptick of opportunities on the Government Publishing Office website, on Unison, as well as, sources have said, on Sam.Gov. You will see a huge uptick. And for those of you that may be further along in your government contracting endeavors and you have contract vehicles such as STARS 3 or OASIS or HCATS or any other acronym vehicle out there, you too will see a huge uptick in different opportunities. I also want to remind, whenever there is a federal holiday, whatever that holiday is, while the federal government is closed, keep in mind there are government agencies all over the world. And due to time differences, there may be locations in other countries where they're still posting opportunities to bid on. While the government may be closed in your area code or zip code, does not mean there aren't new opportunities coming up. www.gpo.gov. That is the website. The Government Publishing Office is responsible for publications like something like this, like a magazine. They're responsible for. They're responsible for pens and bags, business cards. And so what you can do is once you have a cage code, you can go ahead and register on this website to sell printed goods. Many of these goods come from third-party vendors like Alibaba or from other organizations. So if this is of interest to you, by all means, please register. Pre-solicitation bids are very similar to coming attraction. I don't know if any of you are into The Color Purple or not, but I believe not too long ago, the trailer for The Color Purple was released. I don't think that movie comes out until maybe Christmas, but we all know that the movie's coming out. Maybe you've seen the trailer, maybe you haven't, but we know it's coming out. That is in essence what a pre-solicitation is. The agency is letting you know this is coming out. So it's a great way for you to kind of earmark this is something that you should follow. And a bonus strategy here, you may follow opportunities on Sam.Gov. When you're logged in, you simply click the follow button on Sam.Gov and you'll receive additional information about those different opportunities. This is huge, especially during the fourth quarter because the government has to spend their money. And chances are, if a solicitation comes out July 5th and is due July 9th, they already know who they want. So it doesn't make sense to put in all this time and energy when you're going to end up frustrated, you're going to end up disappointed, and you're going to just end up playing mad because you didn't win. It's like, just let it go. It was meant for somebody else. With Unison, I shouldn't buy my products until my bid is accepted and then I have the contract correct. Yes, by all means, purchase after every single time. Even if you are in a subcontract opportunity, that has happened multiple times where I was hired to do training, for instance. And one time I had to cancel due to something that happened personally. Another time, the prime contractor canceled due to something that happened. So if I would have spent a ton of money on preparing for that, I would have lost out. How does one go about purchasing the products? And this is where sales and negotiation really kicks in. By leveraging those skills, you may be able to cut a deal where you can pay a percentage, or they may just trust you flat out and say, no worries, you can pay us when you get paid. Then there are other vendors that are like, no, sounds great. I see you have a contract, but we need our money. But by using sales and negotiating techniques, it's going to put you in a better position. So just keep that in mind. If you do need funding for these different opportunities, look into credit cards, hard money lenders, friends, family. Look into all different types of resources. Is 250,000 to 500,000 too big to start with? I have to pull from one of my favorite entrepreneurs who has really just helped me through his content, and that is Alex Hormozzi. And one thing that he said, and not only him, but also Myron Golden has said things like this, as well as I've experienced this. So get ready. Very, very important. That is, a contract that is worth $5,000 is more challenging than a contract that is worth $1 million. On the surface, that may seem ridiculous, impossible, ludicrous, potentially. In reality, it is so much easier when an organization is paying higher sum of money than when an organization is paying a lower sum, because these expectations are so high and they've paid $3,000, and then you get annoyed. I've gotten annoyed. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're doing all of this work for $3,000, opposed to, oh, we're doing all of this work for $1 million. Then the framing of it is different. The numbers, because of how society has brainwashed us, that's the part that's really getting at you, in my opinion. Because when we see 3, 5, 1,000, maybe 10,000, that feels kind of comfortable. Like, okay, I can handle that. When you start to see 250, half a million, it's like, oh my gosh, that's so much money. I don't know. And that's only because of what society has told us. All it is are more zeros. That's it. It's so much easier to operate bigger contracts than smaller ones. The best business to start with zero money, one is you could subcontract. Connect yourself with somebody who has work for what you do. So for instance, my main business, we offer training and development. And we have this opportunity right now where we need a certain type of facilitator. So therefore, we reached out to somebody who we know possesses that skills. And now that person is going to be paid thousands of dollars to provide the facilitation. That person didn't have to do any marketing. They didn't have to invest any money. They didn't have to put any kind of manpower into it. They're just going to need to execute on the work. That is the number one way to do so without any money. The other way is, as a prime, making it clear that when you win the work, you will only pay after you have been paid. That is another big way. Have you ever had a contract for commodities with shipping to a country and government? We had a contract with Maxwell Air Force Base, and we sold them about 20 of the Oculus headsets. We ordered them at a discount from Amazon. I then, at the time, my ex-husband took them to FedEx. We have a FedEx shipping account where the shipping is drastically less than if you didn't have a FedEx account. And he had them box them and he shipped them, and Maxwell Air Force Base received them, and that was that. When I was in high school, I lived in Evansville, Indiana, and I was in a Spanish class. I loved my Spanish class and I loved learning Spanish. And my teacher had this office chair. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I've always been obsessed with office things and teaching and office supplies. Very nerdy, but ever since I was younger, I've always been really obsessed with this. So one day she was like, oh, I don't want this chair anymore. And I was like, what do you mean you don't want this chair anymore? She's like, the wheel's broken, it doesn't work. And she's like, I don't want it. I said, well, I'm going to take the chair and I'll make it work. So I took it home and contacted the manufacturer, and they sent me a free wheel. I remember telling her, and she was like, what? They sent you a free wheel? Oh my gosh, I adored her. She was the sweetest. And that's how I look at it when companies are like, oh, we only have limited companies who we deal with, or you have to be an authorized reseller. There's always a side door. Potentially, you can contact somebody who is a reseller and see if you can purchase from them and resell. Maybe you cut a deal with one of the authorized resellers, especially if they're not in government contracting. No different than the chair and the wheel. For whatever reason, she didn't look into getting a replacement, but I knew I was going to get a wheel and ended up getting completely, practically brand new office chair for free. Government contracting is not a sprint. It's not at all. It's like an ultra marathon. But all you have to do is stick with it, because you're going to get through it. There are so many opportunities to change your legacy, to change everything about your life by sticking with it. I would not be here. I would not have 2 residents. I definitely wouldn't be here. Or for government contracting, God, and sobriety. And I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary for sobriety, so probably will mean some discounts for all of you. Have an amazing, amazing evening. Until next time, take care, y'all. Everything is possible.